So I think it'd be a great idea if we just start right now by just saying, I am enough.
I am enough.
Perfect. I know there's different levels of that. I could hear it, and I know it because I experience it. There's different levels of enoughness, because that's a process and a journey that we call the evolution, the awakening process. But if we know that there's no such thing ever, ever, ever as a suffering, not enough God, infinite spirit, whatever name you call it, it cannot be not enough. It cannot suffer. So it would make sense if we say in all of our fullness that I am enough. It's when we recognize and know that we are one with that infinite spirit. That place we talked about earlier, that place in us that can't know all the human problems. That place that feels that inner calm, the inner peace, the infinite health and abundance that's beyond this human existence. So just check on that I am enough and where we are, because our journey, when we say dig a little deeper, the deeper is to get to that place where we know without question, right where we are in all our goofiness and craziness and imperfections, and I don't know what experiences are going on, but all of those, we're enough. We're on that path because we live in a world of experience, and we're here to have those experiences. So when we dig deeper, we're getting to that place. Because well, first of all, what's in that place? What's there? Well, there's an ancient fable. I love those little ancient fables. And it's right in the very beginning where God was creating the humans. And God thought, I don't know what to do about one thing. So he called in his archangels, and they came around. And he asked them, he said, I'm creating this human, and it's a human divinity, but they're not going to know that secret yet. They're not going to know they're divine. I have to put that divinity somewhere where they can discover it and find it, because when they first come to earth, they're not going to remember they're divinely human or humanly divine. They're not going to remember. And the first archangel says, well, I know. Put the secret of life, dig down deep and plant it in the ground. And archangels don't always get along. They're really nice, but they don't always get along. And the other one said, not going to work. Put it at the bottom of the sea. And the other one goes, I just don't think so. Why don't you put it way up high on a mountaintop? And God said, stop. Everybody has to be able to find the secret of life. And in those places, only a few people would get to find it. We have to have a place that everyone can find it. So this sweet little cherub comes over and says, why don't you put it in the human's heart? And God goes, yes, that's where we'll put their divinity, that secret of life, that when they tap in and find it, they'll find the peace, the harmony, the love that casts out all fear. They'll find it and know it and live it and be it. How are you doing? It's in all of us, but we've got to, that's the journey. And I believe that when we get to that place, it's about a conscious co-creation with Spirit. Ernest Holmes believed that we are conscious co-creators with Spirit. That's what our journey is all about, that we can get to that place where we really, really understand that our creativity, our inspiration, our good works do not come from our intellect. We give our intellect a lot of credit, don't we? All the awards, all the things we do, all that we have, all the this, and it's great. But the real blessings come from something much, much deeper than the intellect. As we know, the intellect can only take us so far. It's interesting, that thing that's so hard to describe, that secret of life thing, that divinity thing. It's very hard to explain. In fact, Ernest Holmes calls it the deep, inward, undefinable something. Something! He calls it the something because it is. It's unique to each and every one of us. And it's what we're searching for, it's what we're working for, it's where we're going. But we have to find it for ourselves. It's unique to each and every one of us, how we experience it. So, I love, how I love the mystics, because the mystics get it. They don't live in, they aren't some woo-woo thing. The mystics have just found that pathway to that indescribable, deep inward something. And they don't need a mental process to get there. They don't need to go step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, I'm getting there. They just get there. It's the instant realization, the spiritual realization without the process that the mind goes through. I don't know if we're there yet. Maybe occasionally, those bursts of insight, instinct, deep knowing, we get that. But I think there's something we need to realize. Mechthild of Magdeburg, a 13th century German mystic, amazing woman. She says a quote that I love so much because I think it's an awareness for all of us. She said, "In this life we are given 2 wines to drink, the white wine of joy and the red wine of suffering. And until we have drunk deeply of both, we won't have fully lived." And Ernest Holmes says, "We learn to live by living." We need to experience the white wine of joy because that opens us up and makes us feel connected and loving. But we also need that red wine of pain and grief experiences because you know what they do? They rip open our hearts that we can be triggered to something deeper and more meaningful. And actually, sometimes in those experiences, we can go deeper and deeper and deeper into spirit. But the problem is when we go deep, we run into all sorts of junk. Do you find that out? You want to, I remember when I started, in the silence. Thank you, Kathy, for that beautiful reading, because it's the silence where we really connect. But in that silence, I remember trying to find the silence. How do you do it? I remember having to put all my thoughts on logs and have them fly down the waterfall. And I had so many in the beginning. It was exhausting, because you have to train this process of becoming a really spiritual, a humanly divine being, a divinely human being, takes work. It's a job. We don't just get there. So, you put those logs down the waterfall and you work on it and you work on it because our intention is to move beyond the veil of illusion. It was Ralph Waldo Emerson. I talked about Ralph Waldo Trine last week. Ralph Waldo Emerson says, when we let go of the half-gods. Now, before I tell you what we get, the half-gods to me are the gods, like when Rumi says, out between right doing and wrongdoing, the ideas of right doing and wrongdoing. Well, many of us we think, oh, God's with us when things are going what? Right, well. We think, forgetting that out between right doing and wrongdoing, it's all spirit. It's all part of the journey. But we keep God only on the good stuff. Now, it's true that spirit speaks in the language of affirmative language, in the language of affirmation for good, in the language of goodness. But it doesn't mean there aren't going to be tough, difficult, awful, hard experiences to help us learn that. So Emerson said, when we put aside the half-gods, which means we have to step into oneness, the great God appears. It's the faith and trust that we have. The faith and trust that there's something in there that wants to be known and revealed, something more that we can do. That veil of illusion is that boundary that we keep between our humanness, the physical world, and the spiritual world, between the seen and the unseen, between the known and the unknown. And we put that there, why? Because we don't have enough faith in something bigger than our physical 5 senses can experience. So Meister Eckhart said that the reason more people don't follow on the pathway of creativity and possibility and moreness and enoughness is because they lack the faith in that which they cannot see. So they live in that realm below the creative energy that you and I all know. So we need to practice that meditation, that contemplation, the entering the silence where we can start building that pathway in us, where we can tap into that goodness more regularly. So I'm going to invite you, which I do often, is to just join me in this, because I don't know about you, but I need it. So I'm going to ask you to join me. Just put your feet on the ground and sit as straight as you can, just to be that open channel. And I'm going to invite you to close your eyes if you want. And if we can develop this practice to be a regular part of our daily life, to enter into the silence. Meditation means communing, becoming one, becoming aligned with something more than what's going on outside, but tapping into that oneness with God, with Spirit, with infinite intelligence and unlimited creativity, tapping in, moving beyond the pains and the troubles and the insecurities and the unresolved issues to that place that is untouched by any of that. The place that knows right where we are, the allness of life is. And when we tap into that place, what comes with that knowing right now is the power and wisdom and creativity that is instantly available. It's feeling right where we are at one, not just with ourselves, just the way we are and all that we're still becoming, but with all of life. And when we tap into that place, not only do we find that we are at peace and at ease and feeling in the arms of grace and light, but we become that light for others. We become that presence that is beneficial, that is filled with aliveness. That's just a confirmation that this is the right and good thing. And so in that place and space, I simply invite you to open right here and now to the something more that's calling you. That place in us that is that undefinable something. Take a nice deep breath and let it go. As we practice that daily and daily and daily, we'll understand that Spirit speaks to us in a language that is way beyond the human language. It's a language of feeling. It's a language of spiritual emotion. And that's what we'll get. We'll get that energy that belongs just to us, whatever that is, to be guided and directed. Well, it's that interior awareness in us, the deep interior awareness that knows there is a guide, a spiritual guide in us that is our higher self, our self with an H, the big H, the capital H. And when that little self gets connected with the higher self, we'll hear a still small voice when we're confused that says, "This is the way. This is the way. This is how we get there. This is what we do." We can find that peace that we're looking for, because our biggest problem is that feeling of chaos and confusion. That is our biggest problem. And if we could understand that the answer is right where we are right now, we just have to practice and develop. It's just like you don't become a teacher without practicing to teach. You don't become an accountant except when you practice counting. I think it's more than that, but I don't know. That's not my field. That is definitely not my field. But I think there's a lot you have to do to get there. The same with us. We have to do our work to get to the place where we can say, you know what? I can find the peace in the midst of this problem, and I can bring it to you. Because we're not in this practice alone. We don't live here in this world alone. We're in it together. And the greatest gift comes when you can say, I'm here for you. So I have a question. Do you have the courage to do the work? Yes. There's only one person here that said yes. Thank you, Terry. Thank you very much. So we're going to look to you, our new, to be the guide. I love it. I love it. No, I think we better really realize, you got to have the courage to change. You can't do it if you don't. You can think about it all you want. But remember, it starts in our mind, but it ends in our experience and our practice. So do you have the courage to do the work to make the change? Yes. Yes. Yay! Give yourselves a hand. We can do it together. God bless you all. I love you. I want us to leave here today in expanded faith and joyful expectancy of all that is yet to be. And one step at a time, we are walking into a greater experience because we say, yes, I'm going to make it so. And we close it by saying, and so it is. God bless you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you.